Scylla, level 12 upgrade. About a month ago I bought Turnigy's new Graphene batteries. Now, these batteries work fine and all, but the only issue I'm having with them right now is that they don't fit in the battery compartment space of my slash 4x4 very well. So what I'm going to be doing in this upgrade is modifying the battery compartment. The stats on this battery I got was a 4000 milliamp capacity, 3 cells, and a 45C constant discharge, and a 90C burst discharge. It's a pretty good battery overall. I got it for around $35 on sale, but the average price is about $45 to $50 US. It's time to start disassembling the car and modifying. The first step is removing the roll cage with 4 screws, 2 on the front, 2 on the rear. Now I'm going to take off the rear end of the vehicle, which is held on with 4 screws. There's 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. To remove the front end of the vehicle, remove the screw that attaches the link to the steering bell cranks. And remove these 4 screws on the top of the chassis. Now we can start removing items from the chassis. I'll start with unplugging the motor wires, removing this battery hold-down post with the 4-way wrench. Take out this 1 screw so you can remove the motor wire hold-down. Removing this part for the battery hold-down with 2 screws, as well as pulling out the slipper clutch and spur gear assembly. The first thing we're going to take off is the motor. Start by taking out this 1 screw for the gear cover. Then we're going to remove 3 screws for the motor mount. 1 here, 1 here, and the last one on the underside. All you need is a little bit of force on this one end of the motor mount, and you should be able to pull it out. There we go. To remove the antenna tube, take out this 1 screw on the side of it, and then you should be able to pull it out. To dismount the ESC, take off these 2 screws on the side. To take off the servo, remove these 4 screws. To take off the receiver box, there's going to be 2 screws, but they're on the inside of the receiver. So the first thing we need to do is remove these 2 screws on the cover. On the inside, you're going to find a seal. Just want to set that off to the side for a second. And then if you lift up the receiver, underneath you're going to find those 2 screws. Now because I'm an organized freak, I'm going to put the receiver box slightly back together and lightly put on those 2 screws just so I don't lose anything, especially the seal. And the last thing we need to take off is the center driveline cover, just held on with 2 screws. So now it's time to modify the battery compartment. You're going to need a few things. You're going to need a heavy sanding Dremel bit, a light sanding Dremel bit, and a cutting wheel. Now you're going to use this tool to shave down the edge of the chassis so that the battery can sit nice and neatly. This is just for finishing touches, and then this is so you can cut out this little area for the exiting wires. Now you can see I've already done that. That was about a month and a half ago. I just couldn't wait to run these batteries in this vehicle, so I just did it anyway. And of course you're going to need your good old friend the Dremel. Doesn't need to be anything too powerful. You're going to do most of your cutting on about medium to high speed, so right about there. And then all you're going to do is run across here about, 10 times. You want to expand the area around here by 1 millimeter. And then you just go on both ends. And then with the cutting wheel, you're going to go on the edge on both ends. And then take a piece of pliers and bend back that plastic, break it off, and you're going to sand out the rest of it till it's flush. You can see I've already done that. I wish I got footage of it, but I did not. So that's that. So I've gotten to shaving down the chassis, and something I recommend while you're doing this is placing the battery in there every once in a while just to make sure that you've taken out enough. Now, I don't even need to force it in there like I used to when I hadn't shaved it down yet. So this is going really, really well. Probably only going to go for about another minute, but even after taking out about not even a millimeter, it sits in there a lot better than it used to, so I'm almost done. As you can see, this makes a lot of dust. So I'd recommend doing this outside or having a vacuum cleaner around just so you can clean up the area every once in a while because it's going to get everywhere. After you have a desired fit, you are going to switch your rough bit out for a lot more of a smooth one. So this way you're going to get some more finishing done in there. Now that I'm done shaving the chassis, it's time to re-dye this chassis. Otherwise, I just have these weird gray streaks on the side, and there's also points where I kind of hit the Dremel against the side, and dyeing will clear that up very nicely. Now before I do that, you need to keep in mind that for dye to penetrate your chassis really well, you need it to be clean. So what I'm going to be doing is filling up my sink with about 1.5 inches of water, put some dish soap in there, and just clean it like you would dishes. And that way it's going to be really sparkly clean. And be sure to get in all the grooves around the chassis, especially where you've done your work. So now I'm going to be ready to throw it in the dye batch. Now if you want to know how I'm doing this, there is going to be a couple videos I will link down below to show you how I did this process. I just don't want to include it because, well, I've already explained it. And check it out, the dyeing process ended up going perfectly fine. No more gray spot eyesores, and it's time to put everything back on the chassis. If you guys couldn't tell from the beginning of the video, I had actually removed this Velcro from the side of the chassis for my chassis shroud over there. So, I have some new pieces of Velcro to put on there, and I'm going to be cutting them in half and just putting them on the side. Nothing super new. Alright, so without any issues at all, I got all the Velcro mounted to the side. Now we're going to put everything back on the chassis like I said. We will start by putting this piece in with the 4-way wrench. Then we're going to reattach the center driveline cover and put back in these 2 screws. Then we're going to reattach the motor mount setup. Just going to slide this into place on the back of the chassis. Should be pretty firm in there. Then you're going to put back in 3 screws. 1 here, and then 1 on the bottom. You're going to snap back on the gear cover, and then put back in this 1 screw. Slide in this piece for the battery retainer, and then put back in these 2 screws. Now I've taken the cover off the receiver box, and I'm just going to be laying it down right in that area of the chassis where the grooves are. It should line up. I'm going to put back in these 2 screws on the bottom. With that attached to the chassis, we're going to take this receiver, stick it inside the box right there, push down all these wires, make sure that none of them are going outside the edges. Then we're going to take the seal, drop it into place, just like that, and then take the cover, make sure everything is seating in there well. You're going to put back on these 2 screws. To attach the antenna tube to the chassis, we just stick it into the slot right next to the receiver box. Make sure that the wire is going out that way, and then you're going to tighten down this screw. To reattach the servo, we just slide the servo horn into place, then put back in these 4 screws. Then you're going to reattach the ESC to the chassis using 2 screws on each side. Then you're going to attach the motor wires to the ESC, like I did, and then hold down these motor wires with the wire hold down using 1 screw. Now with everything reattached to the chassis, I'm going to put it back on the shroud. So to attach the rear end of the vehicle, I'm going to start by putting in the slipper clutch. So I move the bearing on its seat, and then I'm going to point this part of the adapter down for the screw, slide it inside of the motor mount. Should be sitting in there very nicely. The motor should turn perfectly fine, and then we're going to line that notch up so it's like either horizontal or vertical. Then we're going to take the other end, and you're going to see it has kind of a corresponding notch. You want to line those up, so you slide them into place. I think it's best if you flip it upside down. You're going to slide the grooves into place, and then hold these 2 pieces together while you turn the wheel, and then eventually it should click into place. Alright, so I got that clicked, and you can see that the skate plate and the chassis are flush. So we're going to put back in these 2 screws on the bottom, and then these 2 other screws on the top. To reinstall the front end of the vehicle, we're going to start by sliding in the center drive shaft into place, and then moving over this part of the servo link to the side there. We're going to hold the rear end, something like that, like so, and then slide the front on like you did the rear. Everything should line up perfectly fine. The drive shaft will link up, and the top is going to be flush. And it is. So we're going to reattach 2 screws on the top here, and then 1 on each side on the top as well, and then reattach the servo link to the steering bell cranks. And the last thing to do is reattach the roll cage with 4 screws. Alright, and that is the end of this upgrade video. If you're wondering what battery I got, I will be linking that down in the description as well as with the dying videos, like I said. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns about graphene batteries or this upgrade or dremeling or anything like that, feel free to ask them in the comments below. That's it for this video. I'll talk to you guys later.